for another 25 minutes, and then we'll go and wrap things up for you in the last remaining 5 minutes in the event. So please remember to post your questions in the chat box so we can address these in the Q&A portion. And without further ado, I want to welcome to the floor Dr. CJ Meadows. Perhaps you can say something about yourself for CJ before I bomb you with the first question. Over to you,
Oh man,
CJ.
oh man, I think he's pretty much said it all. He basically I've been a busy person who's been around for a while, but I've been focusing on three things. I started off with being a tech developer and excited about what we can do with technology during this next 100 years. Then I moved into business strategy because I realized it wasn't just about the tech and the capabilities we build. It's about what we do with them. But actually, then we all got smarter on business models and developed a lot more of e-business models. And now the hard part is still design, finding human needs and creating fantastic solutions to solve problems and help people live better. So I can touch on all three areas tonight, and I've gotten into leadership development from those areas. And that says something about the leader of tomorrow. But I'll leave that for the actual discussion.
Thank you, CJ. And actually, that's my first question. Question number one: what is important in developing our leaders today in view of future of work, in view of future changes, and in view of transformation? How important is
Absolutely.
that?
Enormously important. And what we're looking at are new models of leadership, really, that we're emerging from the industrial age, chief and followers, organizations, command and control, to new organizational forms, gig workers, millennial workers, where we've got porous organizations where you can't really tell entirely what is the organization and what's the marketplace. Um, and sources of value, originally with the age of agriculture, the source of key value was land. Then in the industrial age, it was financial capital. That was the capital you built off to create these machines. Then computers came around. We started the age of technology, and knowledge capital became key. But now in the creative age, and with especially with AI, machine learning, bots, and so forth, what we do as humans is going to become even more quintessentially human, and creative capital is going to be terrifically important. Now, the way you lead in an industrial age organization, which is mostly about delivery, is very, very different. A hierarchy, very, very different from a networked organization and the future of work. Linda Hill has a marvelous book out. She's had it out for some time, called Creative Genius, and said that now that we've got networked organizations creating the future, what we see is leaders need to be the people who are not the command and control military dictators, but rather those who craft systems, flexible structures, can make sure today's businesses run and that we're building tomorrow's business and operate in a networked environment of immense change. And that means not just being a leader, it means, and this comes back to what Gandhi said many years ago, leaders should not be judged based on their followers. They should be judged based on how many leaders they create. And when you create a lot of other leaders in your organization and empower them, you have many, many minds creating a fabulous future. And that's a much more powerful organization than the old hierarchical delivery command and control place. Sorry, was that a long answer for a short question?
No, no, no. That was fabulous. Thank you for that, CJ. And maybe I can probably like connect that question into another one, which is in the area of having the kind of uh, onus in delivering and in developing leaders.
Mm.
There are instances where there's certain pushbacks where
Oh
organizations would
yeah.
always look at it from a hierarchical perspective,
Yeah.
but their
Yeah.
organizations are already open to that network piece. So how does that come into play?
Well, it comes into play actually through the shareholders and through leaders that are above the CEO, the board. Um, to be honest, if you look at the stats, disruption is happening, and everybody's talking about disruption, and we've been talking about disruption for 20 years. But it's super, super important for leaders to understand exactly what it is. First, I'll tell you why, and then I'll tell you exactly what it is, and then maybe a little bit on how to deal with it. So, the Forbes 500, not Forbes, the Fortune 500 list from 60 years ago. How many of those companies are gone, bankrupt, bought, disappeared, just fell off the list? 90%. And they've been replaced by Google, Apple, the alphabets, Uber, Airbnb, etc. All right, standard S&P 500. The S&P list, how many of them are expected to be replaced over the next 10 years? 50%. Final piece of trivia, according to a research study by Credit Suisse, what is the average lifespan of a corporation today? Less than 20 years. All right. So, like it or not, leaders, your job has changed. And what you have to do right now is called dual transformation. And this is also based on InnoSight and Clay Christensen's work, et cetera. You've got to keep today's engine running while building tomorrow's business. And that's been compared to driving a car while you're changing the tires on the damn car at the same time. Okay. It's not easy. And they actually require very different skill sets. Also, the leaders of traditional hierarchical delivery type organizations are different from the leadership characteristics that you find in innovators who create tomorrow. And you, leader, have to be both. Also, what I see in my research from the radical innovators who have created billions of dollars of business value is this. Organizations are focusing now on getting diverse, workforces, loads of different people, because in a VUCA world, you don't know who you need. You don't know what skill set you're going to need at any given time. And when you face a crisis, it's a little late to go out looking for a workforce to help you with a crisis. Okay, so we've already learned that we need to build diverse organizations in this constantly changing world. However, I would take it a step further and say that we need to have leaders with diverse minds, people who are themselves diverse. And we can go through some examples a little later on fusion um, and how that works. So basically, when I do leadership development today, there are several different things that I help people experience and learn and grow. First of all, they have to have a strategic mindset, because when you're in middle management, you're in a situation and you're just making sure the damn thing runs. But when you're a leader, you are expected to structure and craft that environment for the middle and low managers and the worker bees, so that in this wildly changing environment, you guys are going to succeed. Your job is to set everyone else up for success. So all sorts of issues that you didn't have to deal with before, now you do. So you've got to be able to understand your environment, see trends and where things are going, see opportunities and how you might serve the world in that capacity. Then, okay, what sort of an organizational structure and systems, what sort of workforce do you need to build that future? What sort of processes, resources, profit models, etc. Those are the things you have to think about. So you have to have a strategic mindset. You also need an entrepreneurial mindset, because more than ever, your shareholders are counting on you to be an entrepreneur, not just a manager, a very, very high level manager. So if you're going to build tomorrow, you need to know how to run an organization today at a leadership level, and you need to know about disruption, various types of innovation, including design thinking, getting you really close to what customers and what do people need and want, and how do we give them fabulous wow stuff. And fusion is also helpful. That's my latest area of research. Radical, really high value innovation that cuts across industries, across fields, across nations, across social class, and more. So, okay, jeepers, this sounds like a really hard job now. Okay, and who on earth would want to do it? Okay, so as a leader, I've got to run today's business, build tomorrow's business, understand everything around my business, understand how to structure both of these things. And so I need to manage a strong innovation portfolio. So now, damn it, I'm a portfolio manager. I need to inspire my workforce because now we have workforces that want to be inspired. And I need to figure out how to appropriately empower them to do both of these things. So it's not just me and a bunch of people taking orders. For the leadership team and my own effectiveness as a leader, I need to understand myself and my thinking style. Okay, so I'm never going to be the whole brain. Which parts of the brain am I, and who else do I need to put in my leadership team so that we are a really solid, fully rounded team? And it goes on from there.
It's very interesting when you mentioned about strategy, the strategic mindset, the entrepreneurial mindset as
Yep,
well.
yep.
But it also has something to do with the fusion of innovation
Mm,
as well as design thinking and all.
yeah.
Would you be able to talk a bit more about that piece where, at which, if I am a leader at this point, at which level should I actually start? Or at which level should that adaptability be introduced? Is it mid management, senior management, or even just the emerging leaders level?
You know, if you're talking about innovation, there are many, many types of innovation, and you're not going to do every one of them yourself. That needs to be dispersed all the way through the organization. But you can't expect everybody to be an innovator taking a project from start to finish. Okay, so the people on the front line are the ones who know the customer the best, and they know the problems the best, and they know the opportunities the best, but they don't necessarily have the skills or the desire to change the way things are. So if you can at least make sure that people give problems and opportunities to an innovation center where there are teams of people who will spend full time fixing problems and developing new opportunities, then you're ahead of the game. And the higher up in the organization everyone goes, so the emerging leaders, the middle manager guys, and the executive team, everyone needs to know about innovation and creating tomorrow and how at least bits of our business today are going to die. Not all of it may die, but look back at the old stats that we just went through. Corporations living less than 20 years, 90% of the Fortune 500 gone from 60 years ago. Yeah, they need to know what role to take there in the future. And the way this is usually divided, if we're talking about a disruptive situation, okay, now we get to what exactly is disruption. Something is disruptive when it shakes up an industry or it creates an entirely new industry. Okay, now, if it shakes up an industry, it is probably going to kill the existing business, cannibalize it, or somehow or another, it doesn't work with it. And when you're in these sort of entrepreneurial startup, build the future situations, one of the best ways to kill them is to make them follow all the rules, regulations, and procedures of the existing delivery organization. So one model that, for example, a very big insurance company that I know of, one model that they have followed is they have an innovation center, which is called a disruptive innovation center. So either people in the innovation center or people in the delivery business, the existing business, put forward possible initiatives, problems, opportunities, yada yada. Okay, then the innovation teams come up with something. Might be a new product service, might be a new process for delivery, whatever it is. Now, if it's a sustaining innovation, that means that it will help the existing corporation make money in the way that it's built to make money. Okay, and so they put that back in the existing organization, and it's introduced throughout the organization. There's some good change management, and then the products and services and that organization improve. That's great. If something is actually disruptive, in general, organizations will kill it. So that needs to be spun off via the venture fund of the big corporation into a new entity. And quite often, these successful corporations have growth boards. So either you've got a chief innovation officer overseeing the sustaining and disruptive innovation and what gets invested and what doesn't, or you have a growth board doing that. It has happened before that something is spun off but vested by the parent company, and the existing business shrinks and the new e-business grows. So if you have to ask yourself, and the board and the CEO are asking this all the time, shouldn't I break that up so that my shareholders can invest as they want in the existing or the new businesses? Well, but then again, if you have shareholders who want a relatively stable but growing investment, then you do want to have the corporation as a whole invest in both parts of the business. As one shrinks, one grows, and everybody's still invested in something that's making money and growing. So these are some of the leadership issues that we go through when we develop leaders.
Thank you, CJ. And it's amazing how real, but at the same time surreal, how the
Yeah.
position of the leader is at this point.
Oh, yeah.
The decisions that the leader makes, given the disruptors, given the demands, and also the changing times. And it's not like we're going to be making a decision now because this was a decision that was founded 5 years ago. Eventually, things change at a faster rate at this point. So, the kind of adaptability that a leader has to take the kind of mindset.
And to build on what you're saying, you're hitting it directly on the nail, because I've done both strategy for new ventures and strategy for existing corporations. When I was at Accenture, I did the corporate, and as an entrepreneur, I did the strategy for new ventures. And when I moved from the corporate strategy that, I was a consultant, we sold this stuff and it's, important and high value. And then I went off and I tried to do some of it for myself, and I felt like such a shyster. Oh my God, I'm like, I can't make the strategies that I was making. And here's why. It took me a long time to understand why. I don't have any data. If I'm launching something radically new, I don't know what exact product I'm going to come out with. I don't know how I'm going to price it. I really don't know exactly how many people are going to buy it or where, or I may have not even have worked out my business model yet, etc. So even the process of making a business strategy is very different. In the corporate world, you use existing data and trends. For new ventures, you gather the data and you consciously experiment, and it's called emergent strategy. So you develop the strategy out of what works, but it's all experiments and experience, and then reflecting and pulling together the insights to decide, okay, we'll focus this way or pivot and focus that way.
And the emergence of data and the importance of it cannot be underestimated, given the fact that these numbers tell a story, given the fact that there's a lot of data points that are crucial and sometimes overlooked.
Yeah. And as a leader, sometimes you have to make a decision. And you sit down and look at it and say, well, damn it, I have no data. I have no idea what decision to make. How am I supposed to make a decision? What am I supposed to do? That's when actually a lot of people forget to look to history, glean the insights, take the insight forward to today and say, okay, well, in this situation, if this is the insight, what does that suggest I should do?
Right. Thank you, CJ. And at this point, CJ and I agreed that it comes to a point where we'll say
Oh
enough
my
talk.
gosh. Look at that.
I
Enough
know.
talk, CJ. Stop talking.
Enough talk. And then we will, speaking of data gathering, this is now the opportunity of the audience to gather information from CJ. So we are opening the floor for any one of you to ask questions. Is either you post them in the chat or you can just simply unmute yourself and post a question to CJ. Oh,
I got one. Can we show them my website before we start talking about particular problems? Because they can get a lot of videos and articles and tests of your thinking style and this and that from that site. And I'll be directing and pointing them to it.
okay.
So it's drcjmeadows.com.
All right.
And there's a whole page on design thinking, which is a human-centered approach to innovation where you find out what people need and want, what's technologically feasible, and how to offer it in a viable way. And there is a particular methodology you can go through, actually a bunch of them. So people can look for that. There's Fusion, which gives people a way to, if you want to be a radical innovator leader, here's 30 examples and a model you can follow, a process you can follow. Famous Fusions, that page is all about companies and the behind the scenes story of how they created radical value. Maybe you leaders would like to do that. Under the coach page, people can take online tests to figure out, what style do I have? So if I'm trying to make a whole brain leadership team, who do I need to put in? And if I communicate with someone, how do I speak their language? And then I've got some additional videos under educator on managing a strategic portfolio, disruption, and a whole bunch of strategy frameworks and a whole bunch of other things. So everybody have fun. Bye-bye.
There you go. So this looks something like this. You can see it on the screen?
Yep.
Okay.
So all of those little pages, go through to grab videos, articles, ideas, insights, anything you want, grab it. It's yours.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that, CJ. All right. Opening the floor to the audience. Who would want to ask a question to CJ?
Oh no, have I scared them?
Not entirely.
I'm sorry.
So we have Feng Wang, we have Dennis, Bilian, Fabian, June, Marie, Imdad. Any questions so far for CJ? You can also post them into the chat.
Should I ask them a question?
Sure, please.
Okay. So guys, he's named you by name. Okay. Are you a leader? And if so, what's your biggest problem? If you're not a leader, why not?
Interesting. Anybody wants to venture that
Yeah,
to
who can
answer that
answer?
question?
Yeah.
I think Dennis has actually unmuted himself.
Hey, Dennis.
Anybody? Going once?
I should be about, slightly over 5 feet tall and an Israeli sniper with a more gray hair and speak with an Israeli accent. And then you'd all think I'm Dr. Ruth and you'd tell me your most intimate secrets.
We still don't have anything on the chat at this point. From the people team, anybody interested in asking a question for CJ? Floor's open.
Shall I ask an easier question?
Please
Why are
go
you
ahead.
here? Why are you here? What would you like to receive? What are you looking for? So, why are you here? What are you looking for? Now you can all answer that.
There you go.
Ooh,
We do have
Marley
one
May.
question. Marley May. So she says, how do we reduce the cost and risk of new product development? Interesting.
Ooh, very, very cool. So actually one way is design thinking. If you've got a situation where you may think you know the problem, but you realize that maybe you don't really, um, design thinking is a fabulous way to reduce the cost and risk because it starts off, number one, with thinking about the challenge. And are you addressing the right challenge? That's where sometimes we do a diverge on challenges or a challenge map to dissect it. And sometimes we find when we post up a challenge and we ask, why do you want to do that? We're not addressing what will really get us towards our most important business goals. Or when we go down and say, okay, what's stopping you from doing that? Then we find something that is a log jam and it's going to prevent anything from being successful. So we better deal with that first and then go up to our challenge. So taking some time to get the challenge right. And I can't tell you how many millions of dollars have been wasted at companies that I will not tell you who they are because they were addressing the wrong challenge. So of course they got the wrong answer. Observing people. Instead of designing out of your head something that's cool based on some cool tech, the truth is nobody cares. Go find out what people's needs and desires are. Then apply the tech to it. Drawing insights from having been where people live and work and really observing them and engaging with them and finding out why do they do what they do? What is it they really want? Those are the insights on which you build success. Then when you frame an opportunity with a vision of the future, not caring if it's possible or not, but just caring that it's wow, you can pull down a vision of the future to make it workable. But I tell you, it's a lot easier to make a wild idea workable than to make a mediocre idea great. So once you've created the vision, then having really effective ways of brainstorming solutions to that is going to help you a lot. As a matter of fact, in a brainstorm, the first 10 to 20 ideas are pretty mediocre normally. You have to go beyond that to get the gold, the good ideas. Then in design thinking, when we go to prototyping and experimentation, that's actually half the time of the project. But if your managers are rushing you to get done, get done, get done, you were scheduled to launch and you're really not ready, here's what companies do. They launch a product.
Oh, I think CJ froze for a while here. Stay tuned, folks. I think CJ is just encountering some technical issues at this point. Let's hope she is able to come back soon. Still some space here. Well, I think she got booted out of the Zoom. Hang on, folks. Let's just wait for CJ to come back for a while. And in the meantime, thank you for the questions that you've been asking so far. I see here Dennis has also posted a question, which I'm going to be asking CJ. Then Roselle also has posted a question. And then let's see if there are others who will be asking a few more. We do have a few minutes left, so we are hoping that CJ is able to come back and we'll be able to address a few of these questions as well. Stay tuned. Hang on. At this point, folks, we're still trying to contact CJ. And I think I see her. There we go. Hey, CJ.
Hi there.
We
And
kind of lost you there for a while.
second rule, don't expect your Wi-Fi to carry you through a Zoom webinar. So I'm awfully sorry,
No
but I'm
worries.
back. And the big thing is, go ahead and, even though you want to rush ahead to a solution and you want to rush ahead and launch something, spend the time up front to make sure you're serving what people really, really want. Then you don't have to sell it at the end. They want it. And you're going to save yourself a lot of failures if you fail early.
Thank you. Thank you for that, CJ. And I'm quite excited to actually ask you a question coming from Dennis. Um, has COVID changed the innovation landscape? And if it did, in what way did it change?
Mm. You know, there really is something to be said for in-person collision of ideas and coming up with things physically together. And COVID made that it totally got in the way. However, COVID has made a lot of we've had to make a lot of other things more efficient because of COVID. Um, and I think people are reaching further and trying harder, and we're developing more more techniques and more tech to help us. I will say this: creativity is not something you do because of lack of constraints. Creativity is inspired by constraints. So we have innovated a lot about our organization's HR policies and how we do business because of COVID. And because of COVID, some of the old ways that we innovated, we're not doing right now, but they'll come back.
Thank you. Thank you for that, CJ. I do have another question coming from Rosella, which I'm going to put in a bit of a twist here. So, Roselle says, how can we craft a culture of creativity and innovation?
Ooh,
Okay,
yeah.
this is my twist.
Yes.
From a senior perspective, how do you
Uh-huh.
role model creativity? How do you role model creativity and innovation?
Absolutely. There's only one way that I know of to do it, and that's to do it.
Wow.
Yeah. Um, you know, when it's the leader who goes out and spends time with customers where they live and where they work and uncovers new needs and asks them why, what are you really trying to do? What is it you really want? Why do you do it like that? When it's the leader that spends time exploring and taking other people's needs under his or her wing and crafting solutions and trying them out and then publicizing that, hey, this one didn't work and here's what I learned. So I'm trying this way and I'll learn something. But, the leader has to say it's okay when things don't work as long as you learn from them. A failure is not when you put something out and it wasn't accepted. That's a test. A failure is when you do that and you didn't learn a damn thing from it. So leaders need to model the behavior of finding out what people need and crafting ways to fulfill needs. Famous entrepreneurs like Mr. Matsushita over at Matsushita Panasonic do exactly this, and other famous entrepreneurs. Look them up online. There's a long list. It's also important, I think, for an organization to recognize and reward people's behaviors that help push forward creativity and innovation. And that doesn't always mean money, but it can. People are motivated by different things. Also, giving people innovation time and having a real process for everybody to come up with, don't demand solutions of people, but do demand that they voice problems, etc. So there's a whole host of ways to create a culture of innovation. Also, don't punish people for having failed. That's the number one thing in Asia that most people are afraid of, that I encounter. So if you can train people to present their results as an experiment and what they learned and reward learning and actually use the learning on other projects, that will help a lot as well.
Thank you. Thank you for that. And I think you've also ventured to answer Savannah's question, where how can leaders get people to start innovating? Savannah, I just wanted to do a call out for you. Are you okay with CJ's response? Is there anything else that you wanted to add to your question, or your thumbs up already? So
Actually, let me add a couple of things. There are also tools and techniques that you can teach everybody in your organization, and they're easy to do. They're just things that people generally don't naturally do, such as diverge, converge. Making sure that you have some time where you diverge a whole bunch of ideas, don't judge them, and then only midway through do you and your team converge on one thing you want to do going forward. And again, you're going to use different tools and techniques at different times. You also have to figure out when to use these tools and techniques. But Linus Pauling, 2 times Nobel Prize winner in science, somebody asked him, how do you come up with such great ideas? He said, it's easy. I simply come up with a lot of ideas. Then I choose the best ones.
I'm going to follow through on that question from Dennis, because his question is, how do you measure a good versus a mediocre idea, if there is such a case?
Ooh. Good question. Very, very good question.
Very.
If you're able at the time to put a value on the potential, then if you have a spot in your innovation portfolio for something that's high risk but super high potential, then evaluate what's the potential. Let me share with you one of my favorite examples of Eero Saarinen, who was a famous designer. His tulip chair is in the Smithsonian Museum, and you've certainly sat on one by now. It was designed in the 1950s, and they're beautiful and very popular. So he was such a famous designer and architect that when there was a city that wanted to put up an iconic building, they asked him to be one of the judges. He arrived late, and they went through the first round. When he came, they said, "Oh, thank heavens. We thought there was a flight problem. We're just glad you're okay. Come on, come and see what we chose." And so there were the designs on the table for an iconic, world-leading, never before seen kind of fabulous building. He looked at the first one and he said, "Wow, that's nice." And he set it aside. And he said on about the next one, "Wow, that's it's nice," and set it aside. And then he looked at the next one and said, "What do you think?" He said, "Wow, that's nice." And he saw a crumpled piece of paper in the waste bin under the table. And so he picked it up, he spread it out and said, "Wow, that's incredible." And the folks looked over his shoulder and said, "Oh, that one. Well, we've never seen anything like it. It's really far out. We don't even know if we could do it." And he said, "Yeah, but this is fabulous. You have to try." And he said, "Look, do the detailed design, do the functional design, do the detailed design, do the functional engineering specs, do the detailed specs. Start. If at some point in the process you can't go on, then stop. But you have to try." That was the Sydney Opera House.
Wow.
And that's usually my biggest example for it's a lot easier to make a wild idea workable than a mediocre idea great. It's a wow idea is the one that a lot of people don't understand. You look at it and say, "Wow," you're not sure if you can do it. It's that kind of wowness. It may look like a stupid idea the way Airbnb and Uber did. Airbnb launched 4 times. Really nobody got it, and really nobody wanted it. Today everybody wants it. Okay. And oftentimes it's the combination of different industries or functions or something that people really don't quite understand. So if nobody understands it and you look at it and say, "Oh my God, wow," then that might be your radical, excellent idea. If you can put a value on it that says that 10 million lives every year are going to be saved, and alongside $1.2 billion, that's one of my fusion examples. That's Dr. Ravi Kumar Banda of Exciton. They invested $7 million, and I think it was 4 years to developing a piece of health tech. And that's exactly what it's going to do now. There was also another fusion example in agriculture that's going to save $8 billion a year. And there's another one that's set to save $16 billion a year in many lives, because 80% of the $20 billion a year vaccine industry requires refrigeration that eats up 80%, and the refrigeration eats up 80% of those costs. Okay, so they identified something that if you can remove that, then you've got a $16 billion a year savings. They came to it not by looking for money, but rather they came to it by looking for applications of silk. And there was a Tufts professor that was messing around with silk fibroins and organics, and found that one of the organics, blood, in fact, did not degrade, even though it was not in a refrigerator. So from noticing something unusual to sensing an application to figuring out, "Oh my gosh, this is a $16 billion a year problem," those are the threads you need to follow.
Nice. Thank you.
Sorry, did that answer anything that
It did.
was
It did.
asked? Okay.
It did. And wonderfully done. And I feel bittersweet about this because I only get to ask one more question and then we have
Oh,
to
it.
close already.
Oh,
So,
it.
okay, I'm just to melange two questions here coming from Agatha and from Bilian. How do we envision a future more radically? So, as if it gets more radical at this point, right? And in connection with that, what are the three most important future skills that we need to consider as leaders? And
Ah,
that's my final
beautiful,
question.
beautiful,
That's my
beautiful.
cap question.
Okay, okay. So for envisioning a really, really radical future, go to my website, look at the fusion examples of 30 radical innovators who 90% of them are entrepreneurs or entrepreneurs, and they have created fields and new industries and so much more. So just go there and learn some of that from there and contact me if you want to talk more. What was your second question?
The second question would be, what are the
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah,
most
yeah,
important
yeah.
future skills for leaders?
Okay, so again, I haven't put this. Actually, I kind of have. Um, if you go to my speaker page, I've got a future of work talk that outlines a framework that I made based on um, World Economic Forum and all kinds of research papers and Lord knows what. And it's based on in a future of with the future of AI, machine learning, robotics, and so forth. What do business people need to be? What sort of attributes and skills do we need from them? And I basically when I collected all of the skills and attributes, it looked like somebody threw up all over my desk with post-its. And so I smushed them around and smushed them around, and it combined. They combined nicely into three areas: attributes and skills of being, thinking, and doing. So for doing, you need to know how to run today's business and create tomorrow's business. And there's innovation skills and business running skills under that. For thinking, you need the critical thinking and logic. You also need the creativity skills, and there are particular skills under that. The biggest bubble by far was actually being. And duh, it made sense after I thought about it. If machines take over a lot of what we do, then what's left is quintessentially human. So these were skills and attributes of intrapersonal management or leadership and interpersonal. And you can see in that talk and in a paper that I probably should post for a download that was published in CIO magazine, something like that. There's that framework. And you can have a look and develop all of your future skills.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you so much, CJ. There we have it. Wonderful insights around developing our leaders, developing ourselves as leaders with our guest expert, Dr. CJ Meadows. We've also posted her link in the group chat or the chat box, so you can check out her link in your free time. Uh, as we say our thanks to the people who brought this event a reality, we're going to be flashing a QR code to invite you to tell us what you thought about this
about this
event.
event.
And we have also posted that link in the chat box, so it's easy for you to access. And on this note, first, thank you goes to Dr. CJ Meadows for a
Thank
wonderful,
you.
wonderful session today. Thank you so much. Um, we've had a really, really enjoyable afternoon because of all the wonderful lessons and insights that we've gotten coming from you. Thank you as well to all the people, colleagues who brought this event to reality. Um, without the team, we were not able to kind of like put together all these events, and we will be putting these events together in the future as well. And a final thank you to all of you, the audience, for breathing life into our sessions. We always have that delightful feeling whenever we see people coming into the Zoom chat, and the numbers increasing. So we encourage all of you to check out our other Agony expert sessions for the whole of August. So we still have a few more to go. And then do check us out. Do check out Dr. CJ Meadows is a link as well. You're going to be learning a lot coming from that site. And on this note, we will see you in the upcoming sessions. This is James Porticos again of People signing off, and we wish all of you a pleasant evening ahead, a pleasant evening, a pleasant afternoon, a pleasant morning ahead. Thank you again, CJ, and thank you, everyone.
Thank you.